Taza árbol en español, ¿cómo se dice?
¿Perdón?
Taza árbol.
Ah,
Taza
no,
árbol.
no.
I forgot in Spanish.
Equality.
Equality.
No es en español.
¿Ah?
Dicen en español.
Yeah.
Igualdad.
Some
Igualdad,
difficult
yeah.
like that.
Taza.
Actually, some reflect both the practice and perspective.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
So they are not exactly the clear, like this kind of boundaries between them.
In some, no. Mm-mm.
Yeah,
They actually work like in both.
yeah. So we can do like this kind of both ways.
I'm gonna take pictures of your arrangements, okay?
Mm-hmm. It's also fun, actually, some products you can be also put into the practice.
Yes.
I have like grocery shopping kind of on the.
Yeah, and don't be misleaded. I mean, do as you think. It doesn't necessarily mean that a practice has to be about doing something necessarily. Okay?
Finish education. ¿Todo tiene?
I have finished education. Or what do you?
Sí, solo quiero saber cuál es el.
El
color.
yellow. El amarillo.
Sí.
She lives in Södernainen. I used to see her at the grocery store.
Yeah, I have so.
She
Used
kind
to
of
be-
stands out. So.
She used to be my neighbor,
Okay.
like in the same.
So everybody knows her.
Yeah.
I read her book. Okay, you tell me when you're ready to tell your story.
Yeah, I had enough here. Hold on, I hope. Hmm.
Okay, ready? Okay, let's start with Carlos.
No. Sorry, but if I just do this, like, try to make sense of all the notes, but it's not exactly a story, but it's one of the things that I really was struck into the country is exactly the whole welfare equality. Starting for, I didn't want to take just like a Gale or something, I just took like in general, and how the person, it's a contradiction because they think that this country, people are very selfish and they're very individualistic, but on the other way, that's amazing, an amazing form to protect you as a person, to stand out being different, and I really love that people can be different here, and they're not diminished by that. But still, all of those small individuals, they have a strong sense of community, and well, this you can see it. That's why they shout most of the time that trying to protect, but the welfare for everyone, and it comes again to this independence. Like everyone is independent to be who they are, but also they have this. They're coming back to the common welfare. They have things like Talcott, for example, which is, I remember when I was invited the first time to a Talcott of a friend, which it could not be like very social. It could be just like, I have my summer cottage, just want to paint it up. And invite all my friends and I put like a bunch of beers, of course, and pizza, and then soon you have 40 people painting your summer cottage. So you paint the whole thing in 4 hours. And then you have a party. And it's a really way to keep your friends close. This pretty much is in the other regions than the capital. but and then come back to this simplicity, which could be related to, for example, the design and the nature. They're very smooth, very simple, because they're like, less is more. And it's also reflected on the culture of how people live their lives, and small houses, few clothes. Coming back from Mexico or from the United States, you could see that over there it's the other way. It's less, more is more. Bigger, more. You collect all kind of things in here. People are more detached from material stuff, and they give more value to for example, nature. They prefer to be in a silent place rather than in the noisy place. And yes, to reflect, for example, in the education. And last, I got this because I love food. But also, I also I have heard a lot of critics about like Finland doesn't have like a more traditions, and they criticize the history because it's a relatively young country. But I've been around for 12 years, and I found a whole variety of traditions and very deep ways and unique ways of enjoying life. And of course, Christmas to me is one very unique. A lot of people tell me that Christmas is quite dull or quite dark. Not only in the sense of the environment, but with the house. But I think I never thought that I would enjoy Christmas. Coming back from Mexico, well, Christmas are like, parties and everyone shouting. Yeah. And I still love it when I go there, but when I'm here and I spend Christmas with a Finnish family that I always go to, it's beautiful, the whole quietness and peaceful. And I never thought that I would miss it, actually, when I'm in Mexico. So,
thank you.
Okay, well, for me, like, experiencing all these things about the language and Finland is in my free time, mostly of them because I really like the sauna, maybe because it's like my country. Like the north of Mexico is so hot, so maybe I feel there really comfortable, and I like the social thing. Yeah, and about, well, I have a lot of friends and my family when they came to visit me. My father came into the sauna with underwear. So it was a cultural thing. You can see where Mexicans, we are so social, and we go and we speak, and when we speak we saw the eyes and everything. And when we are in the sauna, we are trying to put the leg, cover yourself, and just trying to be a little bit like this. And the Finns, they are like, no, hey, this is my space, and
cheek to cheek.
So it's the opposite, totally the opposite. But I really like the sauna and the social thing with the beers and lolu and this stuff, and it's a good place where you start to speak with the people, because there's saunas everywhere in the Uimahal, in the swimming pool, in the gym, in the work. So you go to these parties with the co-workers, and you spend time in the sauna and these things. And well, also I like to go to practice sports. So there, when the instructor is giving you the instructions, so this is another way to learn for me. And this is a good experience with, hey, what means this and what means that, and some of them they try to speak you or to explain everything in English, and you say, no, well, I just want this because I get everything, but what means, because if you don't get the keyword, you are missing all the sentence. So sometimes they are so nice and they try to explain everything in English, and I say, no, if I don't understand anything, something, I'm going to ask for that. So I think they respect that, and I really like it. Well, I really like the practice in sports, but in another thing, another point is, I think the Finns, they take everything so personal also. Like if you are going to practice anything, for you it's like a go to escape or to relax or everything. You are not taking like play football like really serious, and they are like if they are going to play like at the world match or something like that. So it's really interesting also that thing. And well, I think all my experiences and they are much more when my free time and at work. Well, you start to speak with the people, but it's much more difficult to, at least for me, at work, because you just have like a half an hour or some time, and sometimes they just want to speak about the weather or about one specific what is new. At the newspaper it was some specific thing, but sometimes they don't want to open it. Sometimes at work is work, free time is free time, and so it's my personal experience. And well, I think, and well, I put the police because now I'm a thing. So I went to the police and I make all the papers and everything just in Finnish. I was a little bit like accepted of that. Because I don't know if I can manage, but I have the paper now, so I manage well. So, and, well, that's.
Thank you.
Yeah, like for me, I first put like work, and I think like from in my experience from the very beginning, even though I have had very different jobs, it seems to me that in most of the jobs that what I have had is you can speak many languages. And for example, in my first job, I even though I applied in Finnish and everything, but there were the people that I spoke in Finnish, but then there were many of my colleagues who really wanted to practice English. So they came and I think like for me it was some sort of like when I was very tired, I just gave up and I spoke in English. But then when I think it was very difficult and I think it damaged me a lot to speak English in the workplace, because I think like sometimes a lot of working opportunities they didn't give it to me because I spoke English with many of my colleagues, and I think that in those kind of positions you really needed to speak some Finnish well. So that's why I decided to finish speaking English in that specific workplace. And but then at the same time after because I was there working for many years, several years, then but I made friends. I made friends there. But so we started going out in our own time. So this stage where we got to know each other, and then we spent time outside of the workplace. Then we went to bars and stuff like that. And many times when I was very tired, I just switched to English. But I felt relaxed, like, okay, in the workplace I speak Finnish, but outside I speak whatever comes to my mind. But then after I changed jobs, and I was more in teaching, for example, as I said, Spanish. First, I felt the same thing, that if I spoke English with my colleagues, it was seen as a sign of weakness, and then that's why I kind of pushed myself to speak Finnish more. But then when I switched teaching fields, I felt like the pressure. I didn't have any pressure, so I just relaxed and I just spoke whatever. And nowadays, I think that I speak a lot of English, and I don't put too much attention. I think that now is not a very important thing in my workplace what language I speak, but I know that in the future, if I want to have more working opportunities, I should speak much better Finnish than I do now. And I also think that even though sometimes colleagues and myself, sometimes we don't have time, we don't want to make time to go out with each other, I still think that is a very important thing. And even though sometimes I get lazy to go out, but sometimes I think that I should try to push it more in order to kind of mix it a little bit more work and time outside with the colleagues. But I think that I'm getting a little bit this influence of Finnish, that work is work and my own time is my own time, and I don't know, I think I should work on it. And then in the school system, I studied a master's degree here in Finland as well, and even though my program was completely in English, but I felt also that it was possible to speak many different languages. For example, like of course English, but then many of the teachers spoke Spanish, and we kind of got connections, and that was a big door for me, that some of the teachers were very interested in Spanish and the culture, so it was a good thing to use that as a little bit as a connection with somebody else.
Like a trading tool?
Not trading, but some sort of connection, like you speak Spanish, I do as well, and actually because I feel more comfortable speaking in Spanish, I think that I can be myself a lot more in Spanish than any other language, and then in the school system I also saw that for some of the projects that we had in the university, they always wanted to have a Finnish speaker, a native Finn, and usually. I think that also is, even though the programs were completely in English, but they were special positions for the native speakers in the project, for example. And I still think like that if I could speak a better Finnish, I would like to apply for some programs that are only in Finnish. And sometimes I'm hesitant, like how can I or can I not? I think that kind of limits my world about what can I study and what I cannot. And then in my private life, I feel like sauna is a very maybe the nicest thing about Finland, in my opinion. And I think it was a very good thing for me to learn Finnish, because I was living in an apartment before, and we had the date for the guys, everybody in the building. So the sauna was full, and there were only old people, and so they didn't want to speak English at all. So we were there always speaking in Finnish, and that was amazing. That was very nice, and I found out that all Finns are very talkative and very, I don't know, something I really like about them. I'm funny, and
They are funny.
and they treat you so kind of like you are going to learn something, which is, I love it. But also with young as well, but young people, because they like to practice more English. When they're in the sauna, we usually speak, many times we speak English, and that's why it's not such a good place to practice. And then in the nature, because we go to the cabin, and my father-in-law is a Finn, and I think like I have learned kind of like the culture through when we are in the nature, when he teach me about the forest and the lakes and the ocean and this and that and blah, and because he knows about a lot about history, he tells me many things about that, and I think like I was quite lucky to have such a nice father-in-law who takes the time to explain me all of those things, and he doesn't want to speak English, so perfect for me. And I think like the first 6 months we spoke in English, but then after that he changed. I think somebody told him that he had to speak to me in Finnish. All of a sudden he changed, and I was like, I bet his wife told him like, you gotta stop that or something. So he has to learn. And after that, I think like we always speak in Finnish and we never change, which is very nice. And when we have these kind of celebrations like Independence Day, because my wife is Finnish, she explains me a lot like why because she lived in Mexico, she knows that in Mexico we have like party, celebrate, like Independence Day is a big party, and when he was here, it was like first year was like,
That is all.
yeah, exactly. But then she explains like why it's the respect and silence and all. So I think that I have it's a very good source of information to have this Finnish family around, and that's why I think that it's easy to practice also the language with them.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, so Actually, I could tell from the three different perspectives. And let's say from this product perspective, before I came to Finland, of course, I know some Finnish designs like this kind of Scandinavian style, etc. And actually, when I was in still study here, I had a chance to work for Avarte, which is now acquired by the Artec. And I had a chance to even meet Yrjö Kukapuro and know his designing chair, this Karuseli. And so that's my actually first step, really get to know a bit suomalainen suunnittelu. So I would feel really lucky because that time I didn't know how famous this Karuseli, etc. And I even had a chance to meet him, and because actually that time Avarte was taking care of they had a really this cooperation with this Yrjö Kukapuro, etc. So that is like a one that I get to know really deeply about this Finnish design from one product. And then of course that is Marimekko, this ilmiö is more like I start to pay attention when they go more like international after they have changed the owner. So from that time I start to like pay more attention that how Marimekko reflects the Finnish nature in their design actually. And then this Sophie Oksanas, this book is that in one way it's a really famous, let's say, Finnish product in that sense that it is so like successful, and it has been like translated in several languages. Even though that I still haven't finished this book, I have it in my I feel a bit that I should, because maybe that I should take it more in Finnish. Because I feel I read that one in English, it doesn't really attract me yet. So I was thinking that maybe I should actually take the Finnish version. Let's see if I could do that. Because I think once you translate to the language, it always lost something. So, and then this Nokia phone, actually I didn't consider this as a product perspective because of course it is a really a famous one, and it is a big pride for the Finnish industry, but I put it as a practice because I feel that I use this Nokia phone really much that in my Finnish language learning actually. I text in the Finnish language. So, and I have been still using the Nokia. I'm a fan of Nokia because I do feel they have really good technologies. And because also my work that it's very easy to connect to the Microsoft, etc. So that for me is more like a practice that I'm sometimes using that like more in the Finnish language part as well. So I put it there. And then of course this Suomen eduskunta and the koulu, ravintola, työpaikka, ravintola, and the Kela, those are this kind of a cultural knowledge. I feel that it can be also the perspective because it tells a certain value what the Finland brings. But it's more practical that tells that how the Finnish political system, how their welfare system, social systems. So, and then also that this kind of a työpaikka, koulu, ravintola, it also gives you an idea that what practically that it is in Finland, this kind of a ravintola in the workplace and in the school is. So I kind of thought they are kind of like maybe practical cultural knowledge to me. And then like sauna, vappu, joulu, and then ylioppilasjuhla, which I have been quite much aware of or have been luckily that had a chance to be participate all of those, and also suomalainen klassikko. I feel that is more reflects their Finnish value in a sense that because sauna to me is more like maybe I'm a bit different than yours, that you go sometimes sports and you meet different people in the sauna. But my sauna experience is more like a families. Because we often that this kind of juhla time that my mother-in-laws, they have their own sauna and even savu sauna. So we often go with family members, and there you really talk all kinds of things. And I have been always using Finnish with my my husband's families. So it's really this kind of a cultural knowledge for me that because you can really talk this kind of a local values, and you can really talk up things there in the sauna. And but I don't have experience actually being sauna and talk with strangers actually. So far I haven't had, because if it in that kind of a place, usually then I talk to my friends, not the strangers. So that's why the sauna for me is more like the family gathering. And then of course this joulu, exactly like earlier, some of you also mentioned that it's really a, how to say, this kind of a culture and a value that why in Finland the joulu is very much appreciated rauha, not celebration, not party. So that's exactly the local cultural differences that, like also like actually in Shanghai, we also, young generation, we celebrate Christmas like really celebration, lights everywhere. But in Finland, it's like joulu rauha. So we have to expect that. So that's why maybe for some who really don't have maybe the local families to go with in the joulu time, it is maybe boring. What do you do? Everywhere is just quiet, so you don't have anything. But when you're really inside the Finnish family, then you start to know what is exactly that. Yeah, so that's. And then Vappu is that really funny, the time, and if you go to this Undalina, that's the day you will see the most things there. So that's also one really cultural knowledge that how things appreciate this celebration that they value every day from different ages, and they will just go there with their white hat or even gets yellow hat. So yeah, and then of course this Finnish politic, like earlier mentioned, it is like also kind of like a practice, but here that is also very much reflect that those these politic systems, how they think is also the Finnish values, that how they think that they should do and why they are different than the other European countries. So it's partly reflects their also value part. And yeah, Yliopisjuhla, actually they get a lot of chance to use Finnish to discuss with different people, because that time that from families they have been also like different guests have been coming, and then you really had a chance to talk in Finnish and then chat up. And this is also that actually really one culture to know that what exactly that Juhla is, and so it's yeah. And the other one actually I now remember I could have write down is this what is in I think in English is this confirmation party. So when
Ripijuhla.
is
Ripijuhla,
that a-
it's a-
yeah, so when you are 15 or 16, that's so you
Yeah.
are. Yeah, so that's also really one cultural experience, especially for me, that in China that we are not much using the church because we are not much that are religion related. So there you know that you really get to know the culture, that how they really do this first day in the church has a ceremony, and then you got go back home to have the yuhla and etc. And so that's quite much cultural knowledge also, that especially for the different cultures people in that sense. Yeah, I think we have covered quite much here. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll kind of start like this way. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. So one of my first, I'd like never met any Finnish people before going on exchange, and then I met like a whole bunch of them at once. And one of the girls was, we were in Germany, where I thought bread was really good, but the Finnish girl was like, no, it's disgusting. Ruisleipä, I miss ruisleipä. And she like talked about it for 4 months. And then she got some from her mom, and she didn't like tell us. It was a secret, so she could eat it all. And she hyped it up for like so long, and then after that summer I came to Finland and I had a ruisleipä, and I was like, really? That's it? but then when I moved to Finland, I got like really addicted to it because it's like so good and it feels so good, and I was like, okay, it's like an acquired thing. So then I understood, but I still think like the expectations were, it's still bread. But anyway, so during that time when I also had these friends, and they would be telling these like really fast stories, and I couldn't tell if they were happy, if they were sad. I couldn't tell anything about their emotions because it was all this like magical fairy language, and I just didn't get anything. So then that summer, like Marimekko was like, oh, it's so visual. And then Marimekko, and I could say Arabia as well, with the like Mumi cups, and how come every single person has these in their house? So these were kind of like the first steps, like staples to trying to understand this culture from these two very, very narrow points of view. Yeah. So then when I moved here, then grocery shopping became this thing that you do like weekly, and you know, you have like banani, tomati. Okay, that's not so hard. So you kind of start to learn from the store, and then you're like, ooh, I wonder what, you know, grape is, and you look it up in the dictionary, and you learn all those things. And it's also a little bit on this orange or pink side because it it also is something that you do regularly. It's not like a party or wedding, but it's something, a practice, let's say, that you repeat. And then when I started learning more and more, so I liked listening to music. I love Suomi pop. My boyfriend used to hate it, and he still laughs when I turn it on in the car. But I'm like, you know what? It has a very good purpose. But sometimes it's really bad. Sometimes it's like, turn that crap off. And other times it's like, yes, my jam. I love this song. So it seems that when my boyfriend's in the car, it's always bad. And when I'm driving to Tampere, then it's always good. Even if they play the same song 3 times, it's like the good song. And then I liked, so when I was learning, I was like looking for all kinds of stuff, and it made me feel really good to read like Fingerpori and get it. That was like, yes! you might have to look up a word or two. But then you're like, yes, I get it. And it's something cultural that like a Finn laughed at it and you laughed at it too. So you feel like even though nobody's telling you you're accepted, then you're like, yes, I am accepted. I decided. And then I moved to, so this was in Tampere because I first moved to Tampere, and then I moved to Helsinki, and I was actually living with 2 Finns in a HOAS apartment. And we had a pretty good vibe. We would always speak Finnish. Like, they knew they could speak English with me, but as well, they were really, like, encouraging. One of my roommates would just say the weirdest things. I never knew what she was saying, and she knew I didn't know what she was saying. And I was like, I'm going to go watch TV. But she had a lot of fun doing that. I think she thought it was really funny. Until she moved, and then this weird girl moved in, and then she didn't. She said, how am I supposed to get to know you if I don't understand what you're saying? So that kind of fell apart. But what we had in that first group of people was really good. And then you need people to play along. You need people who are going to be encouraging. She was weird. And, okay, hold on. I forgot about this part. So, yes, I think nature. What were the first things I moved here in January, so light was a big issue. I knew that it would be really dark, but I didn't know that, I knew it would get dark earlier, but I didn't realize it would get light later. So like leaving the house at 9 and it's still dark, because this is Tampere, so it's a little bit shorter the days, that was just like weird. I expected it to get like, I just got, you kind of get used to this, and I know a lot of Finns complain about this. I never really, like, some just don't complain, and I kind of took after this Sisu and Julia, so to like, you become like a flower. Yes, I open when it's light, and yes, I close when it's dark, but I don't have to complain about it. So that was, I think, a big thing. And yes, the quiet was really hard for me. I used to like interrupt people by mistake because you're like, yes, 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 yes. Like in the Mexican culture, probably you also like, you agree and acknowledge active listening. But don't do that here, because then people will stop talking and you want to crawl under a rock and die because you realize you just broke a big social norm. So, but I learned how to deal with that when it still happens sometimes.
Yeah,
and yeah, I think part of that the first like 8 months I was here, I didn't have a job. I didn't have like anything to do except learn Finnish and learn about myself and quiet and nature. So that was like, I guess, a very Finnish time in my life, but also very like, you need the sisu to like get through it. So
Survive.
yeah. And then, okay, so we've gotten this. And then parties were an interesting time because we would get all these people together and they would all speak Finnish. And no matter how well I had studied anything, it did not prepare me for the parties. So on the one hand, back then, they were really hard because it felt like I don't belong. And then now it's like I can talk. So I don't think that progress happened at the party, but maybe this is a good way to track your progress. that you're like, now I can do it, and now I go there, and
The
now
first
I
time
talk.
I understood a joke and I laughed and everyone was laughing. I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
I know kung fu.
See, I was like making my own jokes. I would just like say stupid stuff in Finnish, and people would laugh, and it didn't matter if I didn't understand anything they were saying. I would like try to make myself feel like, look, I made people laugh. I have like value. I'm contributing, not just a passive observer accepting everything. So yes, and then I think like multilingualism. Well, I think this is hilarious because like Canada, I think, is way more multilingual than here. So like I didn't see much multilingualism in my first like half a year in Finland. If anything, I would just create it. So it was like, when I was there, we can speak Finglish. And I never had this attitude that you have to, well, okay, in the beginning I was like, I only have to speak Finnish ever. I never speak any other language, and that didn't work very well. So it's kind of mixing them. Then you create this environment around you where it's not either or, so you're always progressing. And then I started going to a Swedish school, which was just a cruel joke because it was like, finally I understand better, and now I don't understand anything. so I was in the English program though, so still have not learned Swedish. But I think this is also an interesting thing these days because when I started working at the gymnastics club, for example, I just spoke Finnish there all the time. This became like my pyhä paikka, where like if you speak English to me, I would just be like, no, this is where we speak Finnish. and I have had coworkers get really excited about speaking English with me at gymnastics, and I sometimes have to say like no. Like, we're not speaking English here. This is not for you. This is for me. So you have to manage this. And also, I went to meet somebody at a company today, and I called her in Finnish. I actually didn't mean to. I meant to speak English, and then I was like, moi, oh, okay, let's just keep going. And so when I met her, speak Finnish, and then I was like, yeah, so actually my native language is English. And I said that, like, in the middle, and she was like, what? Like, so I think this you have to hide if you speak like English as a native language. I think you have to hide it because otherwise there are so few of us who have gotten to the levels that we're talking about that you need to first prove yourself and then that you can like pärjää. Help. What? How do you say pärjää? That you can
Cope.
get by.
That you can
cope.
cope.
Yeah, that you can cope and finish, and then you can like. Can I swear a little? Then you can shoot the shit in English later. And then what else did I have here?